Sunlight spilled over the lace of my wedding gown, soft and warm, but it did nothing to settle the cold knot inside my chest. I sat before the antique mirror in the bridal suite, hands resting on my stomach without meaning to. 8 weeks. Just a whisper of a heartbeat. A promise I hadn't spoken aloud to anyone. I was supposed to tell Derek on the honeymoon, in some romantic, gentle way that made it feel like a shared dream, rather than what it truly was. A clinical decision made with sterile paperwork and fluorescent lights. An anonymous donor. A safe solution. A baby without risk, without inherited pain. Practical. Responsible. Sensible. The words I had built my life around. "You look beautiful," my maid of honor said, fastening the final pearl into my veil. I offered the smile expected of me. It felt thin, like tissue paper stretched too far. Voices floated up from the garden below. Laughter. The soft clink of glasses, chairs shifting over flagstones. The world moved, alive and bright. And inside, I felt like I was standing behind a pane of glass watching someone else's life play out. Maybe this was happiness. Maybe I just wasn't wired for the cinematic rush people always described. Derek was good. Steady. Kind in his own reserved way. A husband any rational woman would be grateful for. But love? I didn't know. I had chosen not to risk the kind of love that devours, unravels, destroys. I'd seen too many women break under the weight of it, and now here I was. Beautiful dress, beautiful venue, beautiful future, and somehow completely numb. The music began. I walked alone down the aisle just as I had insisted. The garden was a watercolor dream of soft petals and gold light. Derek stood waiting beneath the arch of white roses, his smile practiced, proud. He saw stability, partnership, predictability. I saw a life I had already agreed to live. The officiant began to speak. I watched petals tremble in the breeze. A camera flashed. Someone sniffled. The world narrowed, then widened. Too fast, dizzying. If anyone objects to this union, engines roared. The iron gate at the edge of the garden burst inward as 3 black SUVs tore across the lawn. Screams erupted. Chairs toppled. The ceremony dissolved into chaos in a single breath. Men in dark suits spilled out, silent, disciplined, the kind of dangerous that didn't need to announce itself. And then he stepped forward, tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair swept back from a face carved in sharp angles and quiet fury. Eyes so deep and dark they didn't reflect light, only consumed it. He looked at me as if he had always known me. "Rachel Morgan," he said, voice carrying with effortless authority. "Step away from him." Derek moved in front of me. "Who the hell are you?" The man didn't look at him. He only looked at me. "You are carrying my child." The world stopped. My breath, my heartbeat, everything froze in place. "What?" I managed, barely a sound. Gunfire cracked across the garden. Guests screamed, diving to the ground. Derek grabbed my arm, pulling me back, shouting something I couldn't hear through the ringing in my ears. The dark-eyed man moved like a storm. He reached me before I could think to run, one hand closing around my wrist. Not cruel, not careless, just unbreakable. "Move," he ordered his men. Shots fired behind us. Someone was crying. Someone was calling my name. "You don't know me," I whispered, choking on terror, disbelief. "I've never met you." His face didn't change. "There was an error at the fertility clinic," he said, voice low, urgent. "A switch. You are pregnant with my child, and people are coming to take you. If you stay here, you will die." The SUV door opened. His men shielded us as more bullets tore through the air. "Let me go." I fought hopelessly. gown tangling around my legs. He leaned in close, eyes fierce, voice like iron on the edge of breaking. "If you stay, everyone you love dies. If you come with me, you live." I stopped struggling, not because I believed him, but because somewhere inside, I already knew my life had just split cleanly in two, before him, and everything after. He pulled me into the SUV. The door slammed, the wheels spun. My veil tore free, fluttering behind us like a ghost of the woman I had been just moments before. The engine noise faded as the SUV sped farther from the wedding garden and the world I had known my lungs refused to work right. My heartbeat was loud and uneven. The man beside me did not look away from the road ahead, even though he was not the one driving. His presence filled the vehicle, like gravity, pulling everything around him into his orbit. I pressed my back against the door, trying to put as much space between us as possible. The lace of my wedding gown scratched my skin, and the veil had vanished somewhere behind us. My hands shook uncontrollably. "You kidnapped me," I said, my voice a whisper that felt too small for everything that had just happened. He did not react with anger. No raised voice. Only that same cold control. "I saved you. There was another vehicle waiting to take you from the reception. If they had taken you, Rachel, you would not have survived the night." My name on his tongue felt strange, like he had known it for a long time. I looked at him fully now, and wished I had not. He was terrifying in a way that did not rely on threat, a calm monster, a storm held inside a human shape who... "Are you?" His jaw tightened, and for the first time something like pain passed through his expression. "Luca Valentasi. And the child you carry carries my blood, which means enemies of mine now have a reason to hunt you." The world narrowed again. Pregnant. Yes. But with this man. This stranger whose world was bullets and black SUVs and men who followed orders without blinking. I shook my head. No. No. I chose the donor. I chose someone safe. Tested anonymous. All records sealed. He exhaled like he had been, waiting for me to say that. "The clinic is owned by the Krasniki network." He said, "They have been infiltrating fertility operations for years, switching samples, targeting people they can use as leverage. Your procedure was never safe. You were never anonymous." My stomach turned. Someone had chosen me. Not fate, not chance. A decision made in a dark room by men who had never looked at me. And now my life was collateral in a war I had never heard of. Luca continued, his voice low-controlled, deadly calm. "They wanted the child to trade for territory, a bargaining piece to force my hand. When I discovered the breach, I knew they would move fast to secure you. I moved faster. The SUV turned into long tree-lined roads far from the city security cameras, hidden in lampposts, iron gates with guards who saluted Luca without question. This was not a house. This was a fortress. The door opened and cold air hit my face. I tried to run. My legs tangled in the dress. I made it 3 steps before his hand closed around my wrist again. Not rough, not cruel, but unbreakable. "Do not run," he said quietly. "There is no safe place to run to anymore." The terror that rushed through me was sharp and immediate, but beneath it something deeper stirred. The truth that nothing in my life would ever be the same again. That the woman who walked down the aisle hours ago was already gone. He released my wrist, and I did not fall. I stood on my own, barefoot in the gravel, breathing like every breath might be my last. "Welcome to your new reality, Rachel." His voice was not cruel. "Only certain you survive by staying with me." I did not answer, because the most frightening part was simple. A part of me already knew he was right. The room they put me in was beautiful and wrong. Soft cream walls, velvet drapes, a bed big enough for 3 people. But every detail felt like a cage. Wearing silk, I stood in the center of it, still in the torn remains of my wedding gown. The air smelled, like lavender and something sterile just beneath it. Security control. Preparedness. A knock sounded once. No urgency. No hesitation. The door opened, and Luca stepped inside without asking permission. He did not need to ask. He owned the room. He owned the ground beneath it. And now he owned the fate of the child inside me. I stayed exactly where I was. Back. Straight. Arms crossed over my chest. Trying to hold myself together. "Explain," I said. Not a plea. A demand. Luca studied me in silence. His eyes were not cruel, not apologetic, just unbearably knowing. As if he had seen 1,000 versions of this conversation, none of which ended with mercy. The fertility clinic was compromised long before you walked through its doors. He said, "No pacing, no theatrics, just truth delivered like a verdict. You paid for safety." But safety was never an option. They have been replacing samples for years, choosing who is born and why. Children as bargaining chips, children as leverage, children as weapons. My breath caught in my throat. A tremor ran through me before I could stop it, because deep inside I already knew he was not lying. Why me? My voice was smaller now, but sharper. A blade searching for something to cut. Luca stepped closer. Not enough to touch, but enough that I could feel the gravity of him. A pull I wished I did not feel, because you were perfect for their plan. Your record clean, your face ordinary enough to vanish, your job steady, and because you wanted a child badly enough that you would not question. The miracle when it happened, a surge of heat rose to my cheeks. Shame, anger, grief, all tangled into one unbearable knot. You stole my life. I whispered I was getting married. I was building a future. I had a plan. His expression did not change, but something flickered behind his eyes. A shadow of regret, or the memory of something long buried. Plans are luxuries in my world. He said, survival is the only truth. Before I could respond, the door behind him opened again. A guard stepped in, face unreadable voice. "Steady, sir." The surveillance team caught movement near the north tree line. Possible recon. Possibly. Kresniki scouts. Luca turned his head only slightly. His tone did not sharpen. It simply dropped in temperature. Double perimeter. No one gets within 50 feet of the house. If they test us tonight, they do not leave breathing. The guard left. The door closed. Silence returned. But it was not empty silence. It vibrated like a wire pulled too tight. Luca looked at me again, this time with no armor, no distance. The bare truth of a man who had killed and survived and expected to continue doing both. They are coming for you, not for me, not for some abstract threat, for you and the child. And they will come again and again, until one of us is dead. My pulse pounded. Fear tasted metallic on my tongue. But beneath it, something colder, something I had not expected. I believed him. Luca stepped back toward the door, his voice steady, as if this were simply another decision already made. You may hate me. You may never forgive me, but I will keep you alive. Rachel, you and the child, even if I have to burn my entire world to the ground to do it. He left. The lock clicked softly into place. And for the first time since the wedding exploded into gunfire, I realized something terrifying. Was not just afraid of him, or the men coming for me, or the violence that surrounded every breath in this house. I was afraid of the way part of me had looked into his eyes and recognized something. There. Something that felt like fate, waiting to be acknowledged. The days that followed did not feel like days at all. Time stretched and folded until I could not tell morning from night. The windows showed sunlight and moonlight, but inside the house everything felt suspended. Waiting, I did not speak to Luca. He did not speak to me, but I felt him everywhere. His presence moved through the halls, like the quiet weight of a predator. Not violent, only powerful. Held in restraint, I explored what I could. Soft carpets beneath my feet. Portraits of people who stared like they knew secrets I did not. Security cameras that blinked every few seconds in the corners of ceilings. Guards who nodded but never smiled. This was a place made for protection or imprisonment. The line between them was thin and easy to confuse. Every evening, a tray of food appeared outside my door. Every morning, the same I ate because the child inside me needed strength, because survival had become something physical, something basic and primal, not a choice, but a responsibility on. The fourth morning, I found the first sign of who Luca had been before all of this. A music room hidden behind double doors at the end of the hall. No guard blocked it. No lock held it shut, as if it had been forgotten or abandoned. I stepped inside. Quietly, the room was large and warm, lit by sunlight that filtered through tall windows. A grand piano sat in the center, black and gleaming, its keys untouched, but covered with a thin layer of dust, as if someone had once played every day. And then, one day they simply stopped. I reached out. My fingers hovered above the keys. I did not press. Something in the silence felt sacred, unbroken. He was behind me before I heard him enter. Luca moved softly when he wanted to, a shadow with intention. I froze, the air between us heavier than walls. No one plays here anymore, he said, his voice low enough to be almost gentle. I turned slowly. His sleeves were rolled to his elbows, his hands marked with old scars, knuckles that had known violence and cold winters, and loyalty paid in blood. Whose room was this? I asked. My mother's. She played every morning at sunrise until she could not. His gaze lowered. A memory passed through it like a wound that had never healed. She wanted me to learn, but I refused. I thought. I had more important things to do. I did not understand what I was losing. Silence settled between us. Real silence. Not the kind filled with fear, but the kind that held grief. Soft, unbearable. Human, I sat on the piano bench. Slowly. Still not touching. The keys. And for a moment, the room did not feel like a prison. It felt like a story, left open, a life, half written. A conversation paused and waiting to resume. Luca stepped closer. Not enough to crowd me, just enough to be near. Enough to share the same air. There is something you need to know, he said, his voice steady again. The men who came to take you, they are not finished. They will try again and again until one side is gone. That is the world you are in now. Not by your choice, but by theirs. My hands trembled. Not from fear, but from the truth in his words. A truth too sharp to ignore. So teach me, I said. He blinked. Not expecting that. If I am trapped in your world, then I need to survive in it. Teach me how. Teach me everything. Something shifted in his expression. Soft, brief. Gone too fast to measure, but real. Then his nod was slow, controlled, accepting something he had never meant to accept. Very well, Rachel. But understand this. Once you learn to live in my world, there is no returning to the one you came from. I held his gaze. Steady now, certain. I think that world left me at the altar. His eyes darkened, not with danger but with recognition, and for the first time we stood not as captor and captive, but as two people standing at the edge of the same fire, knowing we were both about to step in. Night settled over the house like a held breath, the kind of quiet that does not soothe but warns. The walls themselves seemed to listen. Luca kept his distance, but I could feel the shift between us since the piano room. He had looked at me differently, not as something fragile, not as something to manage, but as someone choosing to stand beside him. Even if I was still trembling inside, I memorized the halls, the exits, the sound of guard boots moving in steady rhythm. I learned the layout like a survival map, and for the first time, I began to understand the difference between being protected and being prepared. The fifth night arrived with heavy clouds outside the windows. No stars, no moon, just the kind of darkness that feels like something is watching. From it, I could not sleep. My skin felt too tight around my bones. The baby fluttered inside me, small wings tapping as if he felt the shift too. I wrapped my hands around my stomach and whispered, "We stay alive. No matter what happens, we stay alive." The house was quiet. Too quiet. Then I heard it. Not a sound, really. A ripple. A change in the air. The security lights outside flickered. Once, twice. Then died completely. The hallway outside my room erupted. Feet running, low shouts. No panic, just readiness. My doctor burst open. Not with violence. Not this time, but with urgency. Luca stood there, chest rising sharply, gun in his hand, his voice calm in a way that frightened me more than shouting ever could. "They are here." My pulse spiked so hard it hurt. The world narrowed to him, to his eyes, to the command beneath his words. "Move with me. Now." He extended his hand, not grabbing, offering. I took it. He pulled me close to his side as we moved. Down the hall, down the stairs. Every guard in the house was already in motion, weapons drawn, voices low and sharp. A well-rehearsed dance of war. But the danger was not outside the walls. It was already inside. A window shattered down the corridor, glass raining like diamonds. Gunfire cracked through the dark. Someone shouted in, a language I did not know. The sound of it curled cold fingers down my spine. Luca spun us behind a marble column. His body shielded mine completely. The heat of him, the certainty, the command stay behind me. "If I fall, you run to Matteo. Do not stop. Do not look back. Do not fall," I whispered. His eyes flicked down to me, the briefest touch of something raw and unguarded. "I will not." He moved fast. Precise. His men moved with him, a storm of shadows and gunfire. Everything sharp and terrifying and strangely beautiful in its precision. But I was not meant to watch, not meant to survive this by hiding. A man rounded the corner. Not one of ours. Eyes wild, weapon up. He saw me. His arm lifted. His finger tightened. Time slowed until it felt like the world came apart, thread by thread. I did not scream. I did not freeze. I moved. I grabbed the heavy vase from a side table and swung. Hard instinct. Desperation, fear sharpened into something fierce. The vase shattered against his temple. He crumpled at my feet. The gun clattered across the floor. I stared at him, breathing, ragged heart pounding. The baby, kicking in frantic panic. Luca appeared a second later. His eyes locked on me. Not the fallen man. Me, you listened. You survived. There was no shock in his voice. Only certainty. Only acknowledgement. Before I could respond, a cry of pain echoed through the hall. One of Luca's men, wounded. Luca's face hardened. "Stay with me." He took my hand again. Not dragging, not commanding, But anchoring, we moved together into the war still unfolding, around us, and somewhere inside all that terror. A realization took shape. I was no longer just surviving his world. I was starting to belong to it. And worse, it was starting to belong to me. The house smelled like smoke and metal. The aftermath of gunfire lingered in the walls. Guards carried the wounded downstairs. Others dragged the intruders out through the back entrance. The night outside rippled with sirens in the distance. Not approaching. Just ghosts of the city beyond the gates. I stood in the hallway, barefoot, my wedding gown torn, my hands shaking. The vase I had thrown still shattered at my feet. The man I hit lay unconscious under 2 guards. His breath shallow, his face bloodied. The world had changed again, and it was not finished. Changing Luca reached me slowly, not like I was fragile, not like I was dangerous, but like I was real. Like I was something he had not expected and could not look away from. "Your pulse is too fast," he said quietly. "Come with me." I followed him up the back staircase, to a smaller room with softer light. Not my bedroom, not his. Somewhere private safe. Or as safe as anything could be in this house. I sat on the edge of the couch, trembling without meaning to. My fingers curled tight around my own arms. My breath came, in short, sharp bursts. I killed him. The words scraped out of me. I killed him, Luca, crouched in front of me, close but not touching, his voice low. Steady, unmovable. "No. You defended yourself. And the child. You did exactly what you were supposed to do." Shook, my head. My vision blurred. My chest hurt in deep, sharp waves. I never wanted this. I never wanted violence. I never wanted any of this. Luca did not flinch, he did not look away. He did not offer empty comfort. He only offered truth. You did not choose this world, but it chose you the moment they touched your life. If you had not fought, you would be dead. And so would our child. The word "our" did something to the air between us, something irreversible, something that made my heart twist painfully. I pressed my hand to my stomach. The flutter. There was urgent, like the baby was responding or surviving, or remembering. I looked at Luca, really looked at him. His shirt torn at the shoulder, blood near his collar. Not his. Not this time. His jaw tense. His eyes almost black, but not cold. He knelt for a moment and his hands trembled. Very slightly. So slightly you would not notice unless you were close enough to breathe the same air. He was afraid too. Not of the violence, but of losing something he had not even admitted he wanted. I whispered, "Tell me the truth. All of it. No protection. No half story." He exhaled slowly, like he had been waiting for this, like he had been holding something heavy for a very long time. "You were not chosen at random. The clinic targeted women with strength, compassion, women who could raise a child without fear, women whose children would not become monsters." He paused. "And women who would not hate the man whose blood ran in their child." My throat tightened. Pain and confusion tangled together. "You think I would ever forgive what happened to me? You think I could ever accept being trapped in this life?" He shook his head once. Not forgiveness, not acceptance. Understanding. He moved closer. Close enough that I could feel the heat of him. Close enough that the air between us had weight. "I do not want to cage you. Rachel, I want you to survive." The words were soft, so soft they almost hurt more than shouting ever could. My breathing slowed, my heart steadied, not because the world was safe, but because there was something real in his voice, something raw and unguarded. The baby kicked again. Hard, strong Luca's gaze dropped to my stomach. His hand lifted, hesitated, then lowered again, as if he was afraid to touch too much. Soon I reached out first. I took his hand. I placed it over the movement over our child. His breath caught his eyes closed, just for a moment. The world did not soften. The danger did not fade, but something inside us shifted. Not peace, not love, not yet, but alignment recognition. A beginning where an ending had been expected. For the first time, we were on the same side, and that was more powerful than safety, more dangerous than fear, more real than fate. The morning after the attack arrived, gray and heavy. The sky hung low over the estate, like it was waiting to see if the house would survive another day. I sat at the edge of the bed, with my hands wrapped around a mug of tea I could barely taste. Sleep had been impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the man falling at my feet, the crash of the vase. The look in Luca's eyes when he told me I had survived exactly the way I needed to. There was a knock on the door, not urgent, not demanding, just steady. Measured Luca entered without waiting for permission. He did that often, not out of arrogance, but because permission had never existed in his world. Only intent, only necessity. "We need to talk," he said. I nodded because there was nothing left to pretend. No illusions to cling to. The men who came last night were not the full force, he continued. They were testing us, testing our defenses, testing your reactions. Next time they will come with more. A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the cold air. I remembered my hands shaking, the sound of glass shattering, the heavy silence that came after violence. It would happen again. There was no world where it would not. "So teach me," I said, the same words from the piano room. But now they felt like a vow, not a request. Luca studied me slowly. His eyes moved over my face like he was looking for fear or weakness or hesitation, but I had none left to hide. Not anymore. He nodded once. "Training starts today." He led me downstairs. Not to the gun room where his men stored their weapons. Not to the shooting range behind the estate, but to a room I had not seen before. A room full of screens and maps and files and quiet hums of machines. A mind made visible. A war room. A place where violence began before anyone picked up a weapon. Luca gestured to the largest map, a web of streets, docks, safe houses, paths through the city. "This is Boston as my world sees it," he said. "Not as a city, not as a place of homes and shops and families, but as territory, as power, as survival." He put a small marker where the fertility clinic sat, the place where my life had changed without my consent. "They used you. Used the baby. Used the system you trusted. This is where we strike back." The words hit my chest like a second heartbeat. I was not prey anymore. I was part of the fight. The realization shook me. Not with fear, but with something sharper. A rising flame I did not recognize as my own strength until that moment. "You know the clinic better than any of us," he said. "Every corridor, every waiting room, every locked door. You guide us. We take what we need. We expose what they have done." I felt something move inside me. Not the baby this time. Me. The part of me that had believed in safety, order, predictability, had died the day he crashed the wedding. This was what remained. A woman reborn in fire. I stepped closer to the map. Pointed to the hallway outside the embryology lab. "There is a blind spot here. No camera, maintenance corridor access, if you know where. To press on the panel. They use it when they don't want records of movement." Luca watched me, not like I was fragile, not like I was temporary, but like I was necessary. "Good," he said. We plan tonight. We move. Soon, his hand brushed mine. A brief touch and anchor in the storm. We were both choosing to walk into. We stood side by side. Looking at the war, we were about to start. Not captor and captive. Partners, bound by blood we did not choose, and a future we would fight for together. No matter the cost, the night of the clinic operation arrived like a held breath. The air was cold sharp, the kind that makes the world feel thinner. Danger was not coming. It was already here, waiting for us to take the first step. Luca stood by the SUV outside, dressed in black, no shine, no reflection. A shadow that had decided to walk among the living. His men moved around him with silent discipline, no wasted motion, no fear, only readiness. I wore dark clothing they had given me, soft fabric, no loud seams, no rustling. I felt different in it. Like the woman who once chose pastel lace and soft gold jewelry had vanished, and something new had taken her place. When Luca looked at me, his eyes held something I had never seen before. Not hunger, not control, not ownership. Recognition. The kind that happens when two storms finally realize they have the same sky stay. Close to me, he said. Not as an order, but as a vow. I nodded, my pulse steady, my breath slow. The child inside my body shifted. Not frightened. Only alive. Clinic looked the same as the day I walked into it months ago. Glass doors. Warm lighting. Fake comfort meant to soothe anxious women. Nothing had changed. But I was not a patient. Now I was the weapon. They never expected. We entered through the side maintenance corridor. Just as I remembered. The hidden panel opened when I pressed the seam between two tiles. The mechanism clicked softly, like a secret being acknowledged. Inside, no alarms, no guards, only quiet hallways lit with soft medical lights. But silence here was not peace. It was a lie, holding its breath. We moved step by step, breath by breath until we reached the lab. The door sealed behind us with a mechanical sigh, rows of files. Frozen samples, records, identities, lives selected, controlled, traded. Luca spoke quietly into his comm. Secure the perimeter. Non-lethal, unless necessary. But even as he said it, I felt something in the air. Shift. A presence. A watching. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Confident. The director stepped, out from behind the glass wall. The same doctor who had smiled at me during my consultation. The same doctor who told me I was lucky that the donor match was perfect. His smile now carried no warmth. Only calculation. A Rachel. You finally understand what you were chosen for. Luca stepped in front of me. A wall, a shield, a promise. You will not say her name again. The doctor did not flinch. Do you think you can take down an entire network? Do you think exposing this will change anything? We choose mothers because we choose futures. You were selected, not for obedience, not for beauty, but because your child would be strong, resilient, unbreakable. My breath caught, not because of his words, but because beneath them, there was a truth I had not wanted to face. They had seen strength in me before I ever saw it in myself. The doctor raised his hand. A signal. Doors opened. Armed men stepped out. Guns raised. Luca moved before thought existed. Gunfire erupted. Glass shattered. Lights flickered. I ducked behind. A lab table, heart-pounding hands, shaking. But I was not the same woman who stood frozen at her own wedding. I crawled to the file cabinet, pulled the emergency data drive. The evidence that could expose everything, I clutched it to my chest. Luca was surrounded, outnumbered, but not outmatched. He fought like a man who had learned violence, not as power, but as survival. Every movement sharp, precise, final. One of the gunmen turned toward me. His aim rising, I did not hesitate. I grabbed the metal tray beside me and slammed it into his arm. The shot went wide. Luca finished him in an instant. Then silence. Only our breath remained, harsh, alive. Luca turned to me, his chest rising hard. "Are you hurt?" "No, the baby is all right." He didn't touch me at first, he just stood there, looking at me like I had become something he could not explain, something he did not dare fully reach for. Then slowly he stepped closer. His hand came to rest against my cheek, warm, steady. "Real. You were not chosen." He said, "You were found." The word struck something deep, something unnamed, something that had been waiting in the dark, and for the first time. There was no fear between us, only fire, and the beginning of something too powerful to run from anymore. The night of the clinic raid did not end when we returned to the estate. War does not end just because you walk away from the battlefield. War follows. War remembers. News broke within hours. Someone leaked the footage. Not everything. Only enough to ignite panic. Enough to shake the ground beneath the city. Politicians, doctors, families who believed they chose their children, all suddenly realized someone else had been choosing for them. The world outside erupted, but inside the estate, a heavier storm gathered. Luca paced in the war room, not frantic, not tense, just contained, like a storm trying not to break open the sky. I stood near the window, one hand on my stomach. The baby moved again, not in fear, but in recognition, as if he felt the world shifting around him. Matteo entered the room, face hard, voice low. "They are gathering at the docks, the Kresniki leaders. They called in allies from the Siberian faction. They are preparing for a full retaliation." Luca nodded once, a movement sharp as a blade. "Then we cut this off at the head." Matteo hesitated. "There is more. They are spreading rumors, dangerous ones. They are saying Rachel chose to carry the child of the Valentasi heir, that she was never innocent, that she is his weakness." Silence. Thick, heavy-cutting. Luca looked at me. Then, not like I was breakable, not like I was something to protect from truth, but like I was the only part of this world not built on violence. "They think if they destroy you," he said, "they destroy me." The realization settled like cold steel. I was not just bait, not just leverage. I was a target, the most valuable one. "We cannot hide," I said, my voice steady in a way that did not feel like courage, only inevitability. "They will keep coming until I am gone. Or until they are." Luca stepped closer, not commanding, not controlling. Simply there. Then we faced them together. He did not ask if I was ready. He did not ask if I was afraid. He already knew both answers. We left that night. No disguise. No shadows. We walked into the lion's den wearing truth-like armor. The docks were lit by oil lamps swinging in the wind. Shadows moved men with guns. Men with nothing left to lose. The leaders of the Kresniki stood in a circle near the water. Cold eyes, colder hearts. Their leader stepped forward. Tall gray hair. A smile that did not reach his eyes. So this is the woman. The mother of the future. Valentasi line. The empire heir. The key. His gaze traced me slowly, like I was not a person, only a vessel. a thing. Luca stepped in, front of me. Solid, unbreakable. His voice was calm, but the night bent beneath it. Speak her name again and bleed for it. The man only smiled wider. Ah, there it is. The weakness we wanted to see. You love her. The word struck like a wound, not because it was false, but because it was too close to the truth. Neither of us had spoken. The leader lifted his hand. His men raised their weapons. Then something inside me broke open. Not fear, not panic fire. I stepped forward, past Luca, past the circle of guns, past the men who believed they controlled my fate. You chose me because you thought I was soft, because you thought I would break, because you thought I would disappear. I kept walking, slow, unhurried, every step a refusal, but I am not made of glass. I am not a whisper. I am not a vessel for your power. I stopped inches from the leader, his breath visible in the cold night air. I am the mother of the child who will bury your legacy. Silence, complete, stunned, absolute. Then the leader's smile shattered Lane Kyo. Then gunfire exploded. Luca pulled me back. His men surged forward. Chaos erupted. Light sound, smoke violence unfolding like thunder. And through the storm, Luca's hand found mine. Not to drag, not to shield, to hold together. We ran, we fought, we survived. When the smoke cleared, the docks burned behind us. The water glowed with reflected flame. The Krasniki were broken, not destroyed, not gone, but fractured, wounded, unbalanced. Luca turned to me, his voice barely a breath. You did not fear them, you faced them. Met his eyes. Neither of us looked away. I was not running anymore, and neither was he. The fire at the docks changed everything. The city whispered our names now. Not as hunted, not as trapped, but as the people who struck back and lived. In the weeks that followed, the estate became quieter. Not safe, never safe, but steady. A calm earned through blood and choices that could not be undone. I moved through the halls with no guard at my back. Not because danger was gone, but because I no longer walked like Pray. Luca watched me sometimes. Not with possession, not with hunger, but with a kind of awe that he did not know how to speak. Like he had never expected to stand beside someone. Instead of ahead or behind, one evening, the sky softened to gold and pink, the air warm and still. The kind of evening where the world feels gentle, even when it should not. I stood in the garden. The same place I had once walked toward a future that did not belong to me. Now overgrown roses twined up the stone arch where I had stood in white lace. The memory rose. Sharp, clear footsteps behind me. Soft, slow Luca joined me. No guards, no distance. The child kicked beneath my hand, strong, alive. A promise. Luca's voice was quiet. I have spent my life building walls, fortresses, armies, preparing to survive every loss. But I was not prepared for you. I turned toward him. The sunlight caught his face. Hard lines softened, eyes warm in a way I had never seen before. He came closer, not with command, but with something far more dangerous. Vulnerability. You were never my weakness. Rachel, you became the first thing I ever wanted to protect without violence. The first thing I have been afraid to lose. My breath trembled, not with fear, but with understanding. I spoke without planning the words. You did not steal my life. You changed its direction, and I chose to keep walking. His hand lifted, hesitated, then rested over mine on my stomach. For a moment, nothing existed. Not the past, not the enemies that would always watch from shadows. Only us. Only the heartbeat beneath our hands, time shifted, softened. The baby arrived in the early hours of a quiet morning. No chaos, no screams in the distance, only breath-warm hands, steady guidance, and Luca's voice low in my ear telling me to stay with him, to breathe, to trust him, and then a cry. Small, strong. The first sound of a new world, Luca held our son with hands that had ended lives, hands that had protected mine, hands that now shook. Not from fear, but from feeling too large for his chest to hold, he whispered in Italian words. I did not know, but understood all the same. A promise of love, of protection, of a future chosen, not stolen. We named him Matteo, meaning gift. Weeks passed. The house was no longer a fortress. I was trapped. Inside, it was a home we were rebuilding from the ashes of everything that tried to break us. One afternoon, Luca led me to the garden again. The roses had been cut back, shaped revived. The arch did not look like a memory anymore. It looked like a beginning. Turned to me. No ring, no performance. Just truth. Walk with me. Not as someone I protect, not as someone who needs me, but as someone who chooses me. As I choose you, no speeches, no promises of forever. Just a step forward. Together. I took his hand. Not because I had to. Not because fate demanded it, but because somewhere between the gunfire, the betrayal, the fire, and the heartbeat, we had become something no one planned. Not captor and captive, not accident and aftermath, not chaos and refuge, but two lives that collided, fought, burned, and kept choosing each other. We walked through the arch, into the life that belonged to us, into the family we created, into the future we would defend together. Not the future I planned, the future I claimed, the future we earned through fire and love and survival, the future that was ours to live forever.